Hello and welcome to Inform New Hampshire. My name's Rich Merrett, your host. And, well, before we get into the show, let me, as I always do, ask for you to keep Jerry DeLemus and Sue in your prayers. He's an innocent man sitting in jail for over 2.5 years. And briefly, for those who might just tune into the show and not know who Jerry is, Jerry lives in New Hampshire. He went out to the Bundy Ranch. Oh, I don't even know when it was, 2014 or 15, whenever that situation happened. And he arrived the day after the so-called standoff, but he tried to keep the peace, I guess. But he also said that he was willing to lay down his life to protect the rights of him and the people that were there, which is a noble, patriotic thing that we should all be doing. Anyway, he was charged, and I think it was 87 months was his sentence for doing nothing. Everybody else out there is free, except for Jerry and Greg Burleson. I think Greg was real lucky. He got like 96 years or something. And he's probably, I heard his health is failing, so he's not doing that well. But 2 innocent men in jail. Gotta love it. Criminals are still walking around, Hillary and Bush and all of them, Obama. Anyway, you just hold out hope that the right thing is going to happen. Secondly, I'd like to ask people if they would reach out to the National Liberty Alliance.org and try to help them, financially or otherwise. They're trying to put together books or booklets, 75-page booklets. I could be off on the pages, might be 78 or whatever it is, but anyway, they want to send them to every sheriff in the United States, at least 20 copies to each 3,133 counties. So that's a noble cause, because what we need to do is, education is what's going to get us out of this entire mess that we're in as a country. And for some reason, people seem reluctant to want to do it. But what I hope to prove today is how we get into this mess, at least on a very rudimentary level. I hope that you can understand it once I finish it and see what I'm trying to talk about. But reach out to the National Liberty Alliance. They filed, I can't tell you how much paperwork they put into the court system trying to stop what's going on, including the Lavoy Finnegan murder back in January 2016. So he was killed almost 3 years ago. No one's ever stood trial for murdering him. Shot 6 times with his hands in the air. I don't know what it takes to wake up people in America, but maybe a combination of things, or maybe it'll happen to you and your family, and then you'll wake up. Anyway, try to go to the National Liberty Alliance, and if you can't afford money, donate your time. They can use either one. This is for all of us. No one's looking to line their pockets. We're looking to save this country, save the freedom that it stands for. And by the way, if America fails, so does the rest of the world. It's kind of that simple. And the corrupt will be running this planet. You won't have the freedoms that you have. So thank you on that deal. Okay, what I'm going to get into is, are you a U.S. citizen today? And please, there's this very, very short test. It's a one-question test at the end of this that I'll hit you with. But pay attention to what's being said in these very short clips today, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a conditioning mechanism that we're all in. Are you a U.S. citizen? The answer to that for all of us is, yeah, of course I am. I was born in one of the 50 states united. Well, that's not the question you're being asked. So you're being tricked into answering that question. With that, we can watch a very short clip. I think it's only a couple minutes long, and we'll start off with that.
You're a citizen, man? You're a citizen, man? You're a citizen, man? U.S. citizen? U.S. citizen? U.S. citizen? Thank you. U.S. citizen? I am an alien. You're an alien?
Yeah, why are you recording so much? It's good.
President, right? Yes, it goes film him, but U.S. citizen? First, I'm
I maybe think this is heading to Toronto.
Have a good day. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Are you a citizen of the United States?
I don't have to answer that.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, the part that I wanted to point out here is they're asking everybody, U.S. citizen, U.S. citizen. And the people that are depicted in this video are not bad people by any stretch of the imaginations. My whole point is simply this, or part of my point, I shouldn't say the whole thing, but these people are asked to ask us questions, and those questions are not accurate. And for example, well, you saw that they asked the last person there, are you a U.S. citizen? And they said, I don't have to answer that. And he said, good day. But if you're out on the highway and they're trying to stop you, I've seen situations where it's been a little bit differently. They yank you out of the car because you either don't answer or you say, I don't have to answer or whatever. The point that I will make in a few minutes is simply that you are not a U.S. citizen. None of us are a U.S. citizen. And I'll explain after you watch a couple more short clips what I mean by that. So if we can go into the second clip, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Weiss and Associates presents, Are You a U.S. Citizen? Just who are you? A pretty basic question, but it's also a very open-ended one. Let's explain. When I was much younger, I recalled asking such an open-ended question after I had a shrimp dinner. Naively, I asked the waiter, where did you get these excellent shrimp? The response stopped me in my tracks when the response was, from the ocean. At first, I was offended, but after thinking about the question, I got an answer, but not the specific one I was hoping for. The manner in which I asked my question became a life lesson, one not taught in the educational system for some reason, or maybe I had a sick day when it was taught. Open-ended questions never get us to the response we're seeking. In our thinking, we understand the fact that shrimp are caught, so that was not the result being sought, but on the other hand, it was a proper response to such a broad and generic question. So, if someone were to ask you, who are you? The response could range from a Homo sapien to a traveler, a visitor, or any other generic response which leaves the party asking the open-ended question very little specificity. So, let's avoid such rookie mistakes by becoming more targeted or specific in our questioning. In regard to the subject related to the federal income tax, we really need precise questioning to secure the level of understanding about questions that we rarely think of day to day. So, if you were asked, are you a U.S. citizen? You would consider this more of a direct question when there is only one of two possible choices to make, yes or no. Next is a more direct question, such as, what is your definition for a U.S. citizen? Some American nationals respond with, someone born in the United States. Then they stop in their tracks when given a response like, is your definition referring to one born in the constitutional republic or in the United States? What are you thinking now? Are you a U.S. citizen? If so, were you born in the constitutional republic, the now 50 states of the Union, or were you born in the United States? What you're seeking, perhaps for the first time, is that there are more definitions for the term U.S. citizen and United States than you considered up to this moment. Only direct, closed-ended questions will provide you with understanding about what those questions are pointed to. A U.S. citizen, as expressed in the Constitution as citizen of the United States, refers to one who was born within that geographical area now referred to as the 50 states. Those who are born in the constitutional republic enjoy the benefits and protections stated in the Constitution, and retain inalienable rights from government intrusions into their lives when the laws created by the U.S. Congress don't conform to the limitations placed against the Congress by the Constitution. This constitutional meaning is included in the description used in your passport. However, the Internal Revenue Service doesn't match the term U.S. citizen with that definition, but rather a statutory definition. This is why there's so much confusion about the term U.S. citizen, as its statutory definition means one born in territory belonging to the federal government, and by that birth, those individuals are under the dominion and control of the federal government, devoid of any benefits or protections via the Constitution. Do you now see the profound difference? The same is true for the expression United States. There are two separate and distinct definitions. These definitions relate to separate jurisdictions geographically as well. First, in context to the constitutional republic, this is the United States geographically known today as the 50 states of the Union. On the other hand, the federal government defines this term in the Internal Revenue Code at statute subsection 7408D to be only the District of Columbia. Here's what the statute says. If any citizen or resident of the United States does not reside in and does not have his principal place of business in any United States judicial district, such citizen or resident shall be treated for purposes of this section as residing in the District of Columbia. The reason for all the emphasis is to assist American nationals, those born in the constitutional republic or naturalized there, to understand the semantics related to the federal income tax. Due to the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in the Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust case, the federal income tax was declared to be a direct tax, which could only be applied within the constitutional republic via the rule of apportionment requirement. This decision protected American nationals working in the private sector from any obligation to file and pay that tax. Yet, when one only views this in the context of U.S. taxpayers, a statutory U.S. citizen is a subset of the statutory definition for U.S. person. The IRS points to statutory U.S. citizens as being U.S. taxpayers in their documents such as Instructions for Form 8938, Specified Individual, and states, "You are a specified individual if you are one of the following. 1. A U.S. citizen. 2. A resident alien of the United States for any part of the tax year. 3. A non-resident alien who makes an election to be treated as a resident alien for purposes of filing a joint income tax return. And 4. A non-resident alien who is a bona fide resident of American Samoa or Puerto Rico." You see that the IRS uses this term, but it's never clearly defined until you read the definition at 3C Amjur 2D section 2689, who is born in the United States and subject to United States jurisdiction. A person is born subject to the jurisdiction of the United States for purposes of acquiring citizenship at birth if his or her birth occurs in territory over which the United States is sovereign. Thus, it's vital to stay away from open-ended presumptions about the words the national government created in the Internal Revenue Code. The IRC only relates to those U.S. citizens who are defined by the national government to be those born in territory belonging to the national government, like the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, or Guam. There's a huge difference between the two separate and distinct jurisdictions in which you find this term used, and without critical thinking, you're easily drawn into identification as being a statutory U.S. citizen, as the IRS will not show you the definition of this phrase and the context it's used in. So, are you a U.S. citizen, as in IRS publications? The answer could be yes or no, as it depends on the location of your birth. American nationals who work in the private sector and were born in the constitutional republic are described as lawful non-taxpayers in Long versus Rasmussen. Here's the part of that decision that's pertinent. The revenue laws are a code or system and regulation of tax assessment and collection. They relate to taxpayers and not to non-taxpayers. The latter are without their scope. No procedure is prescribed for non-taxpayers, and no attempt is made to annul any of their rights and remedies in due course of law. With them, Congress does not assume to deal, and they are neither of the subject nor of the object of the revenue laws. For those who are born in territory belonging to the U.S. government, you are a U.S. citizen by statutory laws created by the U.S. Congress for application within that 10-mile square and, by extension, its U.S. territories. As those who are so identified, they are U.S. taxpayers. Due to several reasons, but also due to a lack of knowledge by most American nationals, they've misunderstood what's really being stated by the IRS. This tax distinction about what a U.S. citizen is defined to mean from a constitutional perspective vis-a-vis a statutory context must be clear, and American nationals must stop thinking in an open-ended context to words of art used by the U.S. Congress in its creation of the statutory laws that were never created for application toward American nationals. Due to the current confusion about the two definitions, we prefer to use the non-statutory term American national in reference to the expression U.S. citizen in order to eliminate further confusion. Definitions get even more obtuse when you refer to the congressional expression non-resident alien individual. This is the same as saying American national or citizen of the United States in context to the constitutional expression. We encourage you to review the narrative on our website under the tab heading, "Are you a non-resident alien individual?" We also have a video on the subject. The link to that will be provided in the show notes below. So, are you a non-statutory U.S. citizen? Have you made the incorrect presumption in the past about your being such? Most Americans have. Then, you make an election to be taxed as if you're a U.S. resident alien. Words are tricky. Ask close-ended questions and you'll find the truth. Weiss & Associates can provide you with the ability to leave the U.S. Tax Club on a permanent basis with our revocation of election, as this is provided for by the U.S. Congress within the IRC. In doing so, you'll also clear up the confusion about the statutory use of the term U.S. citizen and to help you stop using this troublesome term. We have many more videos posted in the resource center of our website, weissparis.com. Thanks for watching. Please smash the like button and subscribe to...
Well, one of the things that I don't believe this gentleman mentioned that I would like to bring up is that the United States, just those two words, today is a corporation. You can find that in the United States codes. They became a corporation a long time before we were born. And most people were born. Everybody was born because it was way back. I think it was 1925. But the act that passed it was 1871, Congressional Act of 1871. The whole point that we're trying to make here is simply that on your voter registration, which is how they trick you, we're finding out through research that the voters guide and the voter registration and that whole thing about voting is a big scam. When you sign up, it says one of the first things on the form, the voter registration form, is, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" And everybody's saying, "Yes, I'm a citizen of the United States." Well, that's not what they're asking you. They're asking you if you're a U.S. citizen, and the word citizen is small c. If they were asking you, "Are you a citizen of the United States of America?" with a capital C on citizen, I'd say, yes, you are. Unfortunately, this isn't Congress. This is the bar, the British Accreditation Registry, which I don't know why they license our attorneys, but that seems to have to happen. So they do these word games. Are you a U.S. citizen? No, you're an American state national. If you were born in one of the 50 states united, I think that clears that up, and you have a regular job, and you're not working for the government, okay, you are a American state national or American national, however you want to word it, and stick to those terms. Don't fall into the cat. As soon as you say you're a U.S. citizen, You're saying, okay, I'm subject to the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C., like the gentleman said. What that means is you got to pay a tax on your wages. Another word for that is slavery. You don't have, why would you pay a tax on your time? You're giving your employer 40 hours worth of work. They're giving you X amount of dollars. Where's the government fit into that equation? You're exchanging something. You're bartering. Here's my time. Give me some money. Why should the government extract any of your time or money for that purpose? We all make that mistake. It took me a lifetime to learn this, and I'm trying to help people. But you have to study certain things. My recommendation is that you watch Aaron Russo, America, Freedom to Fascism on YouTube. Excellent documentary. Understanding the Truth About the IRS, another good documentary. And then read the book. It's on the internet. It's free. Cracking the Code. Read those three things and you have a very good understanding. It'll take you a while to do it, yes, and watch it like me. It doesn't sink in that good, so I watch it 2 or 3 times. I read the book a couple times. But I have a great understanding of it, or I think I do anyway, of it now. And I'm trying to help people. Do not admit to being a U.S. citizen unless you were born in Washington or one of the territories. I'll explain it a little bit further when we come back. We still got one more video to go, and we'll jump into that one right now.
New tonight, drivers stopped on major highways, interrogated. The reason? Border security. It's happening right now on the U.S. border with Canada. Martin Savage is out front.
Driving down I-93 in New Hampshire, about 80 miles from the Canadian border, Justin Summers runs into a checkpoint operated by the U.S. Border Patrol. He starts recording. The Border Patrol agent tells him if he wants to keep driving south, he has to answer a question.
Are you a United States citizen?
Summer tells me he resented being stopped and interrogated.
I indicate, hey, I don't want to answer these questions. I'd like to be on my way.
That didn't happen. This is the area of the checkpoint. Justin Summers says when he refused to answer the agent's questions, they detained him and said they would hold him until he told them what they wanted to hear. In other words, indefinitely. The message to you is, if you don't answer this question, we're going to hold you on the side of the road here until who knows when.
Exactly. It's kind of an intimidation tactic, I think.
So I need you to pull over there?
A tactic critics say is happening more frequently and far away from the U.S.-Mexico border, which has been at the center of attention when it comes to immigration. This is another checkpoint in New Hampshire Memorial Day weekend, and this was Maine just this month.
If you want to continue down the road, yes ma'am, we need to know what country you're a citizen of.
Hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals are being stopped, detained, seized, and interrogated without any reasonable suspicion, without any probable cause that a crime has been committed. And that's really not how our Constitution works.
You have anybody in the trunk?
The American Civil Liberties Union calls the checkpoints illegal and blames the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy. And you don't have to live near a border to run into a checkpoint. By law, border agents can work up to 100 miles from the entire perimeter of the country.
2/3 of individuals living in the United States actually fall within this 100-mile region.
It gives us a chance to see what's going on, in our case, what's going on in our area.
Sector Chief Dennis Harmon says the checkpoints aren't random but based on intelligence. He sees the questioning and detention of Americans as a minor inconvenience.
It's no more of a stop or inconvenience than you have at a traffic light.
The traffic light doesn't query me, though, as to what I'm doing or why.
True. But we're not asking you what you're doing or why. We're just asking you a simple question. Are you a citizen of the United States? Or of what country are you a citizen or national?
But you will delay my moving forward until I give you some response.
Which the courts have affirmed that we're allowed to do.
The checkpoint in Maine did apprehend an undocumented immigrant. But Harmon couldn't say how many Americans had to be stopped and questioned to make that happen. Meanwhile, in neighboring New Hampshire, Justin Summers was eventually released and says he'd do it all again. After all, he lives in a state whose motto is live free or die.
And I don't want to be a nation of checkpoints. I don't want to be a nation where you have to prove that you have the right to be where you are doing your daily activities.
The U.S. Border Patrol up here says for now the checkpoints are going to continue. The ACLU has some advice if you run across one. As an American, you don't have to give an answer. But if you don't answer, be aware you'll likely be detained. And even though the law says you can only be detained briefly, well, your idea of briefly and the Border Patrol's idea of briefly could be very different.
New tonight, drivers stopped on major highways.
Well, a couple points that I wanted to make on this one, and I think it's very important. Like I said earlier, I don't think any of these people, the Border Patrol or TSA or Homeland Security, it doesn't matter what agency, I don't think they're bad people. They're just being told to do something that conditions us to accept, are you a U.S. citizen? Okay, and at the end, the Border Patrol agent that they were interviewing said, all we're doing is asking you if you're a citizen of the United States. Well, that's not what they're asking. They're saying U.S. citizen. But we have the right to travel freely and unencumbered. And if they're stopping you and asking you questions, they're infringing upon your right to travel. Please stop filling out forms for the government and stop saying you are a U.S. citizen. You're not a U.S. citizen. All right? And the fact that these people are asking you that question, and I think it's through ignorance, by the way. One of my friends told me you shouldn't be saying ignorance. You should be saying it's a, I forget how he termed it now, but he thinks the word ignorance is a little bit too harsh. I disagree with that. Ignorance is just a word. It means you don't know, you're unfamiliar with, not aware. Doesn't mean you're stupid. I'm not implying anybody's stupid. If I did, I'd be calling myself stupid. I was unaware for a long, long time. You're not a U.S. citizen. And the other point I wanted to make is that as soon as you say you are a U.S. citizen, that 100 square mile area that the Border Patrol claims is theirs lawfully, no, that doesn't apply. That statute, which isn't a law, it's a statute, doesn't apply to American nationals. It applies to U.S. citizens. And that's how they get you. As soon as you admit to being a U.S. citizen, they say, well, that law does apply to you. That statute does apply to you. And they're right. You just admitted to being a citizen, a U.S. citizen of Washington, D.C., or one of its territories. You have to stop and you have to get away from this. It's basically a word game, and I'm not going to get off on a tangent, but I want to emphasize this very, very strongly. The culprits that are doing this is the Bar Association, okay? They're a communist organization. Oh, everybody, they're lawyers. What are you talking? I'm not talking about the individual lawyers. They could be your brother, your son, your mother, your father. I'm talking about the Bar Association that is dictating the terms. And some of the people in this country are bad. They're just outright evil people that are members of the bar. They know what they're doing and they're destroying America. The point I'm trying to make is that these people, the members of the bar or the Bar Association, is trying to take us down, and they're doing it with word games. If you think I'm wrong, look up the word person. Just look up that one definition, and it'll say a human being in body and soul. Then secondarily, you look down, and it'll say in law, an artificial person, corporation, or body politic. Now, did you think a person was a body politic? Because when the judge holds up a paper in court and says, is this you? Are you the person named on this paper? You say yes. Well, it's not. It's an all caps name. It's your artificial person. But we admit to it because we're ignorant. We don't know any better. Anyway, stop admitting to being a U.S. citizen. Please share this with your friends. It's important. Type in, are you a U.S. citizen on YouTube? Watch some videos and find out for yourself. Start looking up documentation on that to that effect. Everybody have a nice day. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. Check us out on Facebook, like us, and on YouTube, subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.